In this video, we're going to learn how to print some reports and the process of actually making a new report. I'm working in the Youth Ministry Zone, and I'm in the individual section. What I'm going to do next is go to Print, and I have the Print window that opens up. And from here, I have a couple different options. I can click on Reports, Letters, and so on. We're going to be working in the Reports section. And from here, I want to show you how to actually create a simple report that will give you the basic fundamentals that will allow you to create a similar type report or different reports later on as you use Inspire, Youth Assistant, or Children's Assistant for your various needs. So you can see I have a large list of reports in here already. What we're going to do is create a report that lists the name, the address, the phone, and the email address of all the individuals. And I'm going to get a little more specific with the report in that I want the email address to appear underneath the address. And I'm going to show you how to do that with some special tokens that we have listed. So first thing we're going to do is click on Insert. And this is going to create a new report for us. So we'll give it a name. We'll name it exactly what it actually does. You do not want to name a report as something like sixth graders because a report, if you remember from earlier training videos, can be used for any kind of search or ministry profile that we perform. So reports are simply nothing more than just templates. So I could do a report on name, address, phone, and email and have it print for all of the senior adults in the church, and then go back and print it again for all the children in the church. So you want to name your reports again simply for what they do. So this one does name, address, phone, and email. And report type, this is used for organizing your different types of reports. We'll just put this one under general. And you can choose to use these options either using default report letterhead. If you want it to print one record per page, I would not suggest that for this kind of report, but it'll do just that. It will take each record, and each record will appear on one page itself, so it makes a very large report. The remove duplicate household members, when you check it here, it actually applies it for this report. So every time this report is printed, it will remove duplicate household members from the list. So if you have a large family and you only want this report, or for instance, if it was a letter or something of that sort, only to go out to one person in the family unit, then you would want to check this option. And you can also tell it to use the default printer, or you can uncheck that and tell this report, for instance, if it needs to print on one specific printer every time that it's printed, you can tell the system which printer that is. You can also change the report fonts and header in this section by clicking on it. This will change it for the overall report, and it will also change the overall header for the report as well. So I have these options checked. I'll click Next, and from here, this can be a little confusing at first, but I'm going to explain it to you and it'll make perfect sense after. What we want to do is decide how we want the layout of our report to look. And in this instance, I'm wanting to do a 3-column report, and but I'm going to have 4 columns worth of information I want to appear, but I want that email address to appear underneath the address of the individual. So I have some options to choose from here. In this case, I'm wanting to do a 3-column with a large second column, and it wouldn't have a picture in it either. And it kind of gives you an idea of what that's going to look like. If I went and chose a different column layout, it would show me kind of an idea of what that information will look like. This one, for instance, would have a picture on the right hand side and then kind of have something like a newspaper style to it. But in this case, we'll do the 3-column, no picture, with a large second column in it. And this is for the header information. Now, this information is for anything like I call it singular information. So things like an address, a zip code, a phone number, email address, something that a person might have one or two of, or maybe a few more, but they're usually things like list items. Now down here in the bottom, the report details, we're actually not going to use that in this report, but what this is used for otherwise is for information like notes or maybe events with lists of requirements and things that have a lot of information that take up more space, and so you need more space for that information to appear in. And you have two options. You have a 1 column and a 2 column. Most of the time when I'm printing a report that needs some kind of note information at the bottom, I generally go with the 1 column. But in this case, like I said, we're not going to use that for the name, address, phone, and email report we're about to print. So one thing you'll need to understand at this part, and I'll come back to this here in a second and show you how it works too, is that the system sees this as 3 columns. So it sees it as 1, 2, 3, and then it starts over again, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's going to make sense here when I start inserting the tokens, because I want it to be name, address, phone number, and then I want the email address to appear in the second column on the second line. So let's move over to the tokens section. I'll show you how to actually do that. We're working in the header tokens. Now remember, this is for the header section, so the columns, and I'm going to put header tokens into that. So I click on Modify Token List, and as I like to call this is the token picker. So from here, simply what we'll need to do is start searching on the tokens that we would like to use. So I'll click in the Find field and start typing name. And I want to move down and choose the individual name for this specific report. So I'll click on individual name, and then I would like it to show the first and last name. So I'll choose that, and it'll give me an example of what this will look like when it prints out. And I'll move that over to the right hand side here. Now the next thing I need is address. So I will type in address. And from here I will scroll down and go to individual address. And I would like this address to appear in one line, since I'm going to be printing it on a report that's going to be somewhat sensitive to the area that it has a print in. So I'm going to choose the one line option, and it gives me again an example of what that will look like here at the bottom. And we'll move that over as well. And the next field is the phone number. And we'll scroll down to the individual phone. And I just want this to be actually the individual default phone number. So if depending on which default number I have checked for this individual as being the one that I should always use. Sometimes the default phone number might be their cell phone number. Other times it could be the phone number for the household. This option or this token here will always choose the one that's marked in red. So we'll click phone number and move that over. And then lastly, I had one other option. I wanted to put in email address. And I will choose individual email, select that one, move it over as well. So now I have first and last name, address, phone, and email. And let's click OK. And now the boxes next to this, you do not have to check these unless you want it to show an identifier for each one. So if I checked email address, it would say email : then it would actually put the email address. But in most cases, when people see an email address, they're going to know what it is. So the way Inspire is seeing this right now is it's seeing this as 1, 2, 3, 1. And let's go back to the columns here for a second so that makes sense. It makes 1, 2, 3, and then 1, the second row below it. So it sees name, address, phone number, email address right here on the first column of the second row. So what I actually wanted to begin with is I wanted email address to appear in the second column. So now I'm going to show you what you need to do to move pieces of information over into the correct columns. So I'll click next again, then go back to Modify Token List. And from here, I need to choose a token that we call the blank line token. Now I can search in here and say blank, and it'll pull up the blank line token. Basically what this token does is it fills up space. So I can click on that and then move it over, but it's still not in the correct spot. Right now it's appearing as the second column in row 2, so it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I actually need this email address to be in the second column of the second row. So what I want to do is move blank line up one row or one spot on the column, and so now it appears as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And let's click OK, and I'll show you what that looks like. We'll click back again, and it's going to be name, address, phone number, and then blank line will appear right here, and then it will do the email address for the individual. And then after it's done that information, it'll go to the next individual, and it will do name, address, phone, blank line, email address, and it does that over and over until it runs out of individuals to do that for. So that's how you can utilize the blank line token in your reports and move information and format it the way that you'd like it to look. So now that we have this created, this looks pretty good to me. I will click Next, and I'm not going to put in any detailed tokens, but if I wanted to, this would be where those would be inserted. And we'll click Next again. Now I have two different options here. I can sort this report if I'd like to. If I wanted to do a sort, I would select the token that I want to do the sort on, and then choose whichever token that is, and then I can group it on that. I can also print each group on a new page. This would be more for things that maybe you wanted to sort by a zip code or sort by a certain group of individuals. And it's just easy enough by clicking on, again, the select token, then choosing what option you would like to sort the report by, and then it will change the categories and give it identifier fields, so something like a title field, this zip code, and then all the people underneath it. And you can also secondary sort, so if you do a primary sort of like maybe zip code, and then down below that you want to sort all the people that belong to another field, you can do that as well, and sub sort underneath that if you really like sorting your reports a lot. So we're not going to do any sorting on this one. We're going to click Next. And I'm not going to be using this last field because this is for Microsoft Word. We'll cover a few more details about Microsoft Word in another video later on. But this would be where you would insert that Microsoft Word template into the software in order to be able to use it. So now I'll click Finish, and I've created my new name, address, phone, and email report. And I'm going to do a print on it just to get a preview of what it looks like. And we'll click OK and let it generate that report for me. And I want to actually zoom in on it some. We'll do about 100% on it. And you can see what I have here is I have the name, and then the address is not appearing in the one line for me. So let's take a look at Harry Allison here. This will be a good example for us to show you in case if you run into problems like this and what you actually need to do. So Harry Allison has a blank on the address field, and then the phone number, and then here's blank line and the sample email address. So let's go down and close out of this. And let's go take a look at Harry Allison's address. We'll click on that. And you can see that his household address is listed here. So now let's go back and take a look at our report. We'll click on Print, and then go to Reports again. And we'll go down to Name, Address, Phone, and Email. We'll double click on that. Click on Next, and Next again. And let's take a look at our tokens. And now if we take a look back at our tokens that we're using, you'll see that we have first name, address, phone number, blank line, and email address. But taking a deeper look here, we can see that the individual address is a different type of address than another token we have. So other address token and how it actually works. It's similar to the phone number token that we used earlier. So we'll scroll down a little bit, and this one is called individual default address, and we'll do that one in one line. So we will move that one over and then take this one actually out. So we'll click on this and then move it out and move our address token up under the name. And what this actually does is, as you saw earlier, Harry Allison's address was in red. So that means it's the default address for Harry Allison, but that was the household address. And not everyone's address is the household address. As you saw earlier in the report, there was one that had an address and many that didn't. So what this does is, just like in the phone number, it picks the default or the address that's marked in red for that individual. So we will choose this and then click OK. And now we'll click Finish again, go over to Print, and click OK again. And we will zoom in on this. And as you can see, now I have addresses appearing for my individuals on the report. So a couple things to keep in mind. Make sure that you choose the column format that works best for you. remember the blank line token, and it can help you because what it's doing right now is it has name, address, phone number, blank line is right here, and then that email address appears right after it. And then remember the default tokens that allow you to choose default address, default phone number, and you'll see that on a couple other tokens throughout the token picker that give you the option to choose a field from individuals that might have that specific field in different areas. So this should help you with creating and customizing reports. And remember those few key features I told you about, and we'll move on to some other videos.